What's up, traders? Eric here from MajorLeagueTrading.com, and in tonight's free video, we're going to talk about how at some point over the last 2 days, we have managed to go from 14,750s to 15,200 in the Nasdaq, and I caught absolutely 0 points of this entire move. So last Friday here, obviously big move. You can see it on the daily charts down there. And if we zoom out here on the 2-minute chart here, you can see obviously big move coming out of there as well. So all the way from 14,700 and change, again, up to 15,200. So a 500-point range over the past 2 days now. And for me, Friday actually ended up being my birthday. So I had planned on taking that day off. And then as we come into the trading day today, essentially what I see here is just this overnight slop and chop action just unfolding overnight, gap down, obviously some scares out of Israel and the things that are taking place there. And so it really looked like it was going to be a nothing day here for the markets. And it's also on top of that a federal holiday. So I was like, okay, cool. I've got enough things that I can check off and go, there's a pretty good chance we're just going to digest some of Friday's action and then maybe decide to do something else later on this week. We'll use today as a data gathering day, and then move on throughout the rest of the week and see what we can do with that. So I was completely wrong across the board. Again, Friday was completely planned for me. Today was willing to do something if there was something worth doing, which I thought would be hey, we get the gap down and then maybe we rally it back in the overnight session. But again, as you can see, we end up making a pretty decent move on the day, 263.25 range points. So the big thing is, if you're in the same boat as I am, maybe you caught some of Friday, but not enough. And today you were thinking maybe lower at one point and then, got caught potentially on a short. That first bit of the morning move was rather brutal. So if you're in that similar type of situation, FOMO's probably sitting at a pretty decent high. 500 points is a pretty significant move out of the Nasdaq. And again, not to mention all of the other names in which have moved. So the key thing from here is now, how do we control this? What is it that we're going to look for? I think at this point, we have to still continue to look for continuation to the upside. The problem becomes is we've got room up to 15,376s and then 15,449.50s. So we have 175-ish points worth of room to potentially 250 points worth of room to hit that upper target. So there's still definitely plenty of room to work with here. And I think the big thing going into tomorrow is that we want to see a relatively flat or even small gap down for the open. A little bit of a gap up tomorrow I think is a little bit harder to try and buy that. Ultimately probably ends up putting in a divergence like what we ultimately ended up having today, and kind of break that down. And I was able to get a mentorship student to send a screenshot of that in and identify it and kind of see all the things working with that, but which we can cover as well. So, but anyways, with this, I think if we open too high, if we're opening somewhere up over 15,300s, yes, we'll probably work up into that 15,376.50s, but the entry will become the problem, right? Because we're only going to have about 75 points worth of room to work with. As we can see, I mean, this market is moving, 260 plus points basically a day, 458 points on Friday. And just this opening range, to put this in perspective, from today right here, 15, call it 060s to 15,960s, this is 100 points worth of range just kind of right out of the gate. Now, again, that is assuming we open up there somewhere around 15,300s, that range could be rather large and may not give us the entry to make the target and everything worthwhile. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on that. From those targets up there, though, that becomes the tricky spot, and we could see a little bit of consolidation. We could see some reactions or rejections from that area, and I think that will definitely present some opportunities here later in the week as well. But I think for right now, it's working to get towards that level. So if you were not like me today and you ended up sitting at the desk, which I was technically getting up from the desk when this divergence ultimately ended up setting off, and here it is right here, from what I wrote. So this was coming into kind of today into yesterday here. So I wrote out, weekly chart in Google looks pretty good. Last week we had to go lower than higher, which was the theme of the week. If we're going to rally though, there's room to that 15,376.50s like we just talked about. And then kind of pause this and read it if you want to. But at 10:45 a.m., this is the one I want to highlight on. I just wrote, don't do any stupid poop today, right? And the reason in which I did that, well, hello. How'd that happen? All right, we're back. The reason in which, just kidding, we're back again. The reason in which I wrote that was just because I saw the S&Ps actually breaking down to new lows, and just kind of assuming here, based on this divergence, where you can see here at 9:45 on this chart, the student that sent it in, would be 10:45 my time. So as soon as I wrote, hey, don't do any stupid poop today, we actually ended up setting the lows of the day on that exact bar. I think the 950 bar on this chart, 1050 bar on Eastern Standard Time, ends up being the low of the day for the S&Ps and the Dow. And as you can see, at that same kind of corresponding time, the Nasdaq's not making new lows, and neither is the Russell. So there's that one little anomaly and moment in time where the S&Ps and the Dow are doing something that the Russell and Nasdaq are not, and ultimately ends up setting, that low of day here for us and rallies us up, obviously 200 and whatever some odd points in the Nasdaq and 50 some odd points, whatever it was in the S&P. So crazy, crazy moves. But again, the divergence came through. Unfortunately, that was when I was getting up from the desk, and just kind of funny there, the timing. So anyways, that's kind of my game plan. A little bit of a rag on myself for calling the bottom by saying don't do anything stupid. And just an overall update on kind of how this week's starting off, and we'll see what we can look for into tomorrow. The big thing for me, though, however, to kind of end this video, talking about the FOMO piece again, is right now, yes, these are big moves. Yes, I did miss them. But the big thing is earnings are basically next week. Like today, okay, Monday, October 9th. Tomorrow we get a couple things. And then really Delta and Citi, Wells Fargo, PNC, BlackRock even, Domino's Pizzas is typically a pretty fun one. There's opportunities for sure at some point throughout the rest of this week. So I'm not necessarily going to be too concerned about Friday and today, given there's nothing I can do about that now. And I want to focus on these earnings that are coming up and not do any stupid poop before then. So anyways, that's where I'm at. And hope you enjoy it. Give me a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you guys in Discord. Peace.